In the heart of a bustling suburban town was a supermarket, a place where people gathered to meet their daily needs. Among the many casts, there was one that was whispered in a low voice, an alley shrouded in mystery and shadows. Employees and customers were aware of its sinister reputation by sharing supernatural stories that took place within its limits. It was known as the Shadow Box. There were rumors of ghostly figures hiding within its boundaries, silently observing the ongoing transactions. Some claimed to have seen pale ghosts dressed in outdated clothes, their eyes full of sadness and torment. Others swore they felt the icy fingers touch their skin as they passed, making them tremble in horror. When dusk fell on the supermarket, the atmosphere was transformed. The lights flickered from time to time, casting scary shadows that danced along the walls. The shelves creak under the weight of invisible ghosts, and the air thickens with an otherworldly presence. The supermarket has become a kingdom where the living and the dead have mixed, a place where the veil between dimensions has become thinner. A brave employee named Sarah, motivated by curiosity and the search for the truth, decided to solve the mysteries that envelop the shadow cash room. With a heartbeat, she put on her uniform and armed herself with a flashlight, going to the supermarket outside office hours. As Sarah entered the dimly lit supermarket, she felt uncomfortable. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of refrigerators and the distant ticking of the clock. She approached the cash register, and a cold breeze touched her cheeks, as if a ghostly breath was passing through her skin. With a beating heart, Sarah directed the flashlight beam into the darkness. The beam passed through the thick darkness, highlighting the shelves made of forgotten things. Time seemed to stand still as she tiptoed closer, her footsteps echoing in an empty store. The shadows danced, lengthened, and deformed, as if they were being manipulated by an invisible puppeteer. A sudden gust of wind turned off Sarah's flashlight, plunging her into complete darkness. She was seized with panic, but she gathered herself with the spirit to continue. She fumbled in her pocket and pulled out her smartphone, using its faint glow to navigate. The box office stood in front of her like a chasm. The shadows revolved around, moving and distorting into grotesque shapes. The air was filled with whispers, barely audible, but filled with pain. Sarah's heart was beating fast when she realized that these stories were not just inventions. Determined to face a supernatural presence, Sarah asked a trembling question in the darkness. "Who are you? What are you looking for?" For a while she was enveloped in silence. Then an icy voice spread through the supermarket, from which goosebumps ran down her back. "We are the lost souls of this earth, attached to this supermarket by a forgotten curse. We seek comfort and liberation from our eternal suffering." Sarah's thoughts were noticed when she realized the seriousness of the situation. The supermarket was built in an old cemetery desecrated by progress. The souls of the undead, once rested in peace, now wandered along these alleys, seeking redemption. Motivated by empathy and the desire to end it, Sarah came up with a plan. She will organize a ritual, a solemn ceremony to free the trapped spirits from their eternal torment. Having collected the necessary supplies from the shelves of the supermarket, she prepared for the upcoming task. Midnight was approaching, and Sarah was standing at the checkout, surrounded by flickering candles and symbols engraved on the floor. The atmosphere crackled with energy as she spoke ancient spells, her voice penetrating through the veil between the worlds. Little by little, supermarket transformed. The shadows retreated, giving way to a soft and warm light. The ghostly figures that once roamed the crate materialized in front of her, with a mixture of gratitude and relief on their faces. When Sarah finished the ritual, a feeling of appeasement seized the supermarket, and the spirits dissolved in the ethereal world to finally be released. The next day, the supermarket resumed its usual activities, but the stories of the shadow cashier gradually disappeared. Employees and customers moved fearlessly through the aisles. Obsessive memories were replaced by a newfound tranquility. Sarah's bravery and compassion overcame the darkness, returning the supermarket to its former state of ordinary existence. However, in the quietest moments, if you listen carefully, it was still possible to hear a faint echo of reminder of the forgotten souls who found solace in the walls of the supermarket.
In the vast expanses of an aging supermarket, nestled comfortably among the bustling aisles and bright shop windows, there was a place shrouded in mystery and horror, an abandoned passage. Whispers among the employees warned of his cursed presence, a forbidden corner of the store where time seemed to stand still and anger lurked. The abandoned passage was an abandoned section of shelves, hidden behind layers of cobweb and neglect. Few dared to approach, feeling the presence of another world, which was permeated by the air. They said that strange incidents haunted the chapel, a dark kingdom where the rules of reality were distorted and the spirits of the damned longed for souls. Among the curious employees, a young woman named Lily showed unfailing curiosity. Attracted by the enigma of an abandoned passage, she decided to reveal the truth behind her sinister reputation. Ignoring the warnings of her colleagues, she embarked on a perilous journey into the depths of an abandoned passage. As the twilight thickened above the supermarket, Lily dared to go out and her footsteps echoed in an immense emptiness. Flickering fluorescent lamps above his head cast frightening shadows, distorting the outlines of the shelves and creating grotesque figures that danced in the corners of his view. Goosebumps ran over his skin, as if invisible eyes followed his every movement. As she approached the abandoned alley, an oppressive silence enveloped the air. The atmosphere thickened, as if the very essence of the supermarket had thickened into a sinister force. Lily's heart was beating frantically in her chest, but determination was pushing her forward. With trembling hands, she reached out to touch the first object on the shelves, a seemingly innocent jar of pickles. But as soon as his fingers came into contact, the bank scattered into 1,000 shards, a deafening explosion sounded, breaking the frightening silence of the passage. Panic spread through Lily's veins when she realized that the passage had come to life and reacted to its invasion with fury. The shelves began to shake, the goods cascaded to the floor in an avalanche of chaos. The once motionless passages curved, creating an ever-changing labyrinth that disoriented and disarmed Lily. The murmur was getting louder, there were fragmentary voices of pain and despair echoing in his head. At every step, the abandoned passage turned into a nightmarish labyrinth. Lily's path was covered with ghostly fog, while invisible hands held her close, desperately trying to lure her into the vice of the cursed alley. The shadows wriggled along the walls, their elongated forms throbbed with a devilish hunger. Driven by both fear and determination, Lily continued to move forward, being a beacon of resistance in the face of the supernatural. She whispered ancient spells under her nose, hoping to find a way to lift the curse that blocked the passage. Her voice was spreading in the darkness, mingling with a painful whisper as she tried to free an abandoned passage from its sinister grip. Suddenly, the fog cleared and a pale light flooded the passage, revealing a supernatural figure at the far end. She was a ghost woman, her face was marked with sadness and her eyes were full of despair. An exhausted mind, attached to an abandoned passage, longed to be freed from its eternal purgatory. Lily's heart was filled with sympathy when she understood the suffering of the spirit. In a voice full of compassion, she promised to help free her, to lift the curse that kept her in the aisle. Driven by the supernatural presence of the spirit, Lily read a ritual passed down from generation to generation, each word being filled with strength and hope. As soon as the last syllable flew from his lips, a dazzling light enveloped the abandoned. A passage that breaks the curse that has haunted the supermarket for decades. The shelves lined up, the goods returned to their rightful places and the distorted reality of the passage dissolved into normality. The supermarket resumed its busy activities, but the abandoned passage became an instructive story that the employees whispered and that was shared as a frightening reminder of the supernatural forces that can take a nap in the most ordinary places. And Lily, changed forever after this meeting, became the guardian of an abandoned passage, making sure that no one would involuntarily fall into her cursed arms.
A new supermarket has opened in the very center of a small town, promising convenience and quality to its avid customers. However, beneath its glittering facade, there was an ominous secret, a secret that would soon engulf the city with fear and disbelief. It all started with a seemingly innocent shopping basket, a basket with ghosts. At first, customers simply noticed the features, an accidental creak or an unexpected jolt when they pushed the cart through the aisles. But soon the whispers spread, and the stories became more disturbing. Some claimed that the cart was moving on its own, sliding around the store as if it was being guided by an invisible force. Others talked about her disappearing into the depths of the warehouse only to reappear later, apparently untouched. Reports of strange events have become more frequent. Shoppers claim to have heard faint calls for help coming from inside the basket, but after a survey found that it was empty. The store's employees talked about strange incidents, food falling off the shelves, unexplained cold spots, and the feeling that she was being watched in her presence. The haunted cart has become a source of horror for everyone who has encountered it. A brave employee named Mark, intrigued by the growing legend, decided to find out the truth about the haunted basket. Armed with a notebook, a flashlight, and combining apprehension and determination, he went to the supermarket after hours. When Mark entered the dimly lit store, a premonition seized him. The usual cheerful mood was replaced by a strange calmness. Shelves lined with groceries stood like silent sentries, and the air was heavy, saturated with an otherworldly presence. He could hear his own heartbeat echoing in the empty aisles as he made his way to the haunted cart. As he approached the cart, Mark felt a shiver run down his spine. Its metal frame seemed to glow in the dim light, permeated with a strange aura. With each next step, the energy in the room intensified, a crackling sensation crept over her skin. Summoning all his courage, Mark reached out to touch the handle of the cart. It felt cold to the touch, causing a shiver of anxiety all over her body. Suddenly, there was a faint creak in the store, and the cart began to move, sliding easily on the floor. With his eyes wide open and his pulse racing, Mark watched the cart as he drove it deep into the supermarket. His path seemed deliberate, as if he had a destination in mind. The store transformed around him, familiar passages turned into dark corridors, the air thickened with an oppressive presence. Mark's heart was pounding in his chest when the cart finally stopped in front of the forgotten pantry door. The door creaked open, revealing a secret room covered in dust and rot. Hesitant, but driven by curiosity, Mark entered, his flashlight illuminating the dark corners of the room. Inside the bedroom, he found a collection of forgotten things, battered photographs, old letters, and trinkets of sentimental value. Studying them, he put together a tragic story. A supermarket was built on the site of an old cemetery, displacing restless souls who sought to regain what had been taken from them. Suddenly the air became heavy and Mark felt a presence behind him. He turned around, and her heart stopped. A ghostly silhouette emerged from the shadows, a sad spirit, longing for peace. It was the mind of a woman trapped in a haunted cart, her anxious calls for help echoing in its metal frame. Driven by compassion, Mark realized that freeing the mind is the only way to bring harmony back to the supermarket. He collected the forgotten objects and built an improvised altar. With a solemn bow, he said. He uttered an ancient incantation, begging to free the woman from her torment. A blinding light filled the room, and consciousness slowly dissipated, leaving behind a feeling of serenity. The supermarket has returned to its normal existence, but the legend of the haunted trolley has become a cautionary tale, a reminder of the consequences of violating the resting places of the deceased. Mark, forever changed after their meeting, became the keeper of the haunted basket, making sure that he would never harm the living again. And as shoppers wheeled their carts down the aisles, they couldn't help but cast a worried glance at the cart, forever haunted by its dark history.